Rwanda's experience. We will be joined by key stakeholders in the digitization process around e-procurement here in Uganda, including our very own Ministry of ICT. As you notice, we will have a working breakfast, so there will not be any tea break. Our sessions will continue, and we'll dive into contract monitoring system, CMS, in Uganda. And I want to appreciate GIZ who are here, who have been working with PPDA on contract monitoring system. And then we'll move to the contract management, factors and implications affecting contract management. We will have a plenary session where we will take questions on the presentations that will have taken place. We'll then have a networking lunch, of course, and then come back to conclude with the private sector innovations for addressing transparency and accountability challenges in public procurement, and then look at the CEO session, or dive into the CEO session on the hosts of the 15th Forum. Then the rapporteurs will run us through the resolutions of this very 14th East African Procurement Forum. And then we will have a closing gala session with some traditional entertainment and, of course, coffees and teas that will be provided for us to continue our networking. So I really want to welcome you on behalf of PPDA to this day 2 of our forum. And I want to invite the Secretariat to come, and I hope that presentation is already up for a rundown of the successes of this day 1. Our PS Minister of ICT, you're welcome. Your seat is next to the chairman there, our chairman of PPDA. I will recognize you at a given opportunity. Joyez, you're welcome. Good to see you. So, Secretariat, please, if we have your presentation loaded, you have only 5 minutes to present. So I know the Secretariat is coming. I want in a very special way to recognize the heads of delegation of the East African countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, our visiting delegates from Zimbabwe, and of course our other partners, the DRC and South Sudan, who we know are also with us virtually. But I also want in a very special way to recognize our virtual audience, those of you who are watching us and following this conversation on Zoom. We welcome you. Again, you can share your comments during the plenary session in the comment section on Zoom. We will be happy to run through them and share them with our audience. We appreciate the feedback from day 1 that was shared, and this should be very exciting for us, because that feedback makes us better and will feed into what we are doing here on day 2. So I want to invite our rapporteurs to run us through the recap of day 1. I see we are going to pray first, right? So the Secretariat is going to pray, right? So the Secretariat will lead us in a word of prayer, and then we'll dive into day 1's presentation. So may I request humbly that we all stand for a word of prayer. Please stand for a word of prayer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's humble ourselves for a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beautiful weather that we have outside. We thank you for the fruitful deliberations that we had yesterday. We thank you for the safe journey masses that you've accorded our delegates from wherever they're coming from. And we thank you, Lord, that you're still in this place. We put this day into your hands, Lord. Bless it. Bless everything that we are going to do today. Cover this place with your precious blood. Let everything glorify and honor your name. In Jesus' name we've prayed and believed. Amen. I hope you had a good night, every one of you here. Did you have a good night? Good. I'm going to recap the issues we discussed yesterday. Day 1 recap. We started off with the key highlights of the implementation of the resolutions of the previous EAPF forums. We've held 12 resolutions, 12 forums, and we wanted to know what is the status. The Executive Director, PPDA, updated us on the 4 resolutions that were made at the 13th East African Procurement Forum, and the member states that were represented here, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, gave the update. We were informed that a study was made by Rwanda to assess the implementation of the recommendations so far made since the first East African Procurement Forum in 2008 to date. We noted that only 53.8% of the resolutions were fully implemented. And we noted that if this was our child presenting such a report, we wouldn't be so happy. And we said that we are going to improve in the performance going forward. So 46.2% have not yet been implemented. The resolution here is that we should have a permanent secretariat, maybe at the East African Secretariat, a desk that is responsible for implementing and following up on the implementation of the EAPF resolutions. We had a presentation on open contracting for sustainable, equitable public procurement, where we noted that open contracting is an approach that delivers systemic change through data-driven, results or focused and collaborative digital procurement. We noted that open contracting enables government to be more transparent, leading to fair, sustainable, and inclusive communities. We noted that open contracting connects businesses to government to civil society. We were taken through 2 case studies of Makuni County in Kenya, where 461 procurement processes had been sampled, and we realized a saving of $407 in road projects, 3.6% increased supplier diversification, 3.8% average number of bids received from 2.1. For Uganda, I know we are at 2.3, so we could study and benchmark from this county. We also studied the Ikiti state in Nigeria, where it was noted that there was an increase in women-led businesses being registered by 50%. What were the resolutions that we made? That all partner states should develop and implement initiatives to promote open contracting. The initiatives should be measurable. That was key and paramount. We noted that what is not measured cannot be improved, and that the data should be searchable and usable. That was the take-home about open contracting. We had remarks from the First Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of East Africa Affairs. She highlighted 3 things: that we need to implement the common market protocol so that we have easy access of procurement opportunities across member states. Somebody from Uganda should easily access markets in Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Southern Sudan, Congo, and all the member states. She said that she was going to request the Office of the Auditor General in Uganda to audit the implementation of the reservation schemes to women. This is provided for in the PPDA law. She wants to see how this is being implemented. She implored the meeting and all members present here to make resolutions that will strengthen the East African community integration. We went to the remarks by the Honorable Prime Minister, who was represented by Honorable Minister of State for Finance, and he noted that there was a lot of loss of money through systemic corruption, facilitated, unfortunately, through procurement processes. He noted the slow integration of the East African community and the slow implementation of procurement contracts across the region. His resolutions were that we should fully digitize the procurement systems in the East African community, harmonize the East African community procurement systems, embrace the zero tolerance to corruption, and fast-track integration in all government sectors. He implored us to look beyond what is in there for partner states and look in what is in for us as the East African community. We went to beneficial ownership, presentation by the World Bank, and we were told that beneficial ownership seeks to ascertain who directly owns the company. That is the legal aspect, but also more importantly, who is ultimately benefiting from and exercising control over a company. It is one thing to be legally an owner, and it is another for you to benefit. And we were told that we should follow the money. If we forget anything else about beneficial ownership, remember, follow. Thank you. So what are the benefits in beneficial ownership? It prevents fraud and corruption. It improves service delivery through increased competition. People have confidence in the procurement systems. It helps verify supplier eligibility, especially when we are looking at preferential treatment and reservations. We are able to know who is a Ugandan, who is a Kenyan, and who is whichever nationality they are claiming they are. And it assesses policy effectiveness and improves policies. The key resolutions made were that we should have a legal framework that balances the right to privacy versus data protection. The lawyers in the House were saying, we have two laws that are seemingly conflicting, so we need to balance those. How do you give out the information, yet you're protecting my rights? We need to consider jurisdiction issues. We noted that we have lack of interoperability laws. But our fears were arrested or aligned when we were told that the EU is handling beneficial ownership and they have laws that are already in place that take into effect the jurisdiction issue, so we can benchmark from the EU. We say that East African community needs to work together to access beneficial ownership data. What are the formats? What is the information that we need? So that when we are integrating, we have the same information from all the East African community countries. There was a fear of duplication and fatigue. We have beneficial ownership information, we have providers registration, so we say that we should be cautious that we do not fatigue people. The same providers that are giving us this information, is it already provided for under the providers register? Do we still need it under beneficial? Can we harmonize and we have the same information received at the same time? We then went into mainstreaming ESHS procurement requirements. We were told that sustainable procurement requires inclusion of environmental, social, and social was expanded to include sexual exploitation, abuse, gender-based violence, health and safety criteria in the solicitation documents. This is aimed at conserving the environment and minimizing unavoidable impact. ESHS provisions provide for healthy and safety at the working environment. It provides conducive terms and conditions of employment and fights modern slavery. We were implored to avoid awarding tenders to the most least, yet he's going to use 12, 15 hours to make our workers work like slaves. ESHS identifies and analyzes sustainable needs, where you develop evaluation criteria and methodology that is included in the solicitation document, and when you're evaluating, you source a compliant provider that adheres to ESHS provisions. The key resolutions made were that we need to have an East African community sustainability policy. There was also need to develop a harmonized ESC public procurement policy. It was noted that whereas it may not be very viable to have a harmonized East African procurement legal framework, but we can have a harmonized ESC public procurement policy where even the sustainability policy can be part of the policy. We need to improve sensitization about ESHS, train, build capacity in procuring entities. For Uganda, for example, we have these provisions in the bidding documents, but we need to enhance sensitization to providers and entities about using these provisions. Then we should enforce penalties for breach of ESH provisions. For example, we can cache the ESHS performance securities where there is breach and make it risky for non-compliance to the providers. We were implored to implement life cycle costing in public procurement. Look at the total cost of ownership of a procurement, instead of looking at tomorrow, let's look at the future of a procurement. So that even if a procurement seems cheap today, what is the cost of, for example, repairs and all that? What is the cost in the future? Instead of looking at just the costs for tomorrow. And we were implored to include curriculum on sustainable procurement, so that our undergraduate and masters and PhD and all that have this in the curriculum. That is what we discussed yesterday. Today, we have a big buffet still ahead of us. We are going to have a discussion on acquisition of an e-procurement system towards ensuring accountability in public tenders. Randa will give us the experience. We'll discuss contract monitoring system in Uganda, and we are happy that a civil society organization is going to take us through this. What are the benefits and challenges so far? We'll talk about contract management. We know that this has been really the weakest link in the procurement cycle. What are the factors and implications affecting contract management, and how can we improve this monster? We'll talk about private sector innovation for addressing transparency and accountability challenges in public procurement. We'll have a CEO forum to host on which country will host the 15th EAPF. Burundi put in a bid already. I don't know whether that was transparent enough and competitive, but we'll look at that. And then we'll come up with the resolutions. And last but not least, we'll have a grand dinner. So please, prepare your appetites for this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what was discussed. You were also implored to go and have sights and sounds in Kampala and the neighboring places. I hope you did that. Over to you, MC. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a recap of day one. Has she captured what we discussed yesterday? The eyes have it? Ah, fantastic. Okay, I'll humbly ask, I was trying to get my chair, but he's being briefed. Joyeuse, you come and do me the honors. We need to give Hilda to confirm that she has captured what we discussed yesterday. We want to thank her. So, Joyeuse, you will... Yes, so you are now the victim to make sure. You're now endorsing day one, and if you're saying the resolutions exactly capture what we discussed. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Hilda for doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Hilda, and thank you, Joyeuse. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this honor, singular honor, and I know at some time I will also introduce her later, but I want to introduce our Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Amina Zawede. Please stand for recognition. Can we give her a round of applause? You're welcome, PS. And she's here specifically to, of course, speak to the EGP, and that's why we are moving into this next session. So I want to take the singular honor before I invite the chair to allow for Francine to make the presentation. So we are quickly diving into our first presentation for today, and I want to invite Ms. Francine Gataraiha, the head of e-procurement Rwanda, to come and run us through this very first presentation. If you have the program, you're aware we are looking at the case study of Rwanda, and we are specifically looking at acquisition of an e-procurement system towards ensuring accountability in public tenders. Francine, you're welcome. And I also want to let the technical team please load our presentation, but also in a very special way, request that Francine, if I interrupt you somewhere along the way, you'll allow me and we'll conclude the presentation later.
Thank you, MC. First of all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity given to us in Rwanda to share about our experience on EGP implementation. My name is Francine Gataraiha, and I'm the lucky coordinator of the famous e-procurement Rwanda. And I will start with the general, talking about the general objectives of an EGP, which I think everybody in the room is aware of. First of all, and first and foremost, it's about increasing transparency. And by the way, our system is called Umucho, which is transparency or light in Kinyarwanda. And it's about reducing fraudulent practices where you will be limiting forged or eliminating forged documents, information availability for all and from everywhere, and increasing accuracy in reporting and statistics, ease of monitoring and audit. I think all of us have seen those cases where auditors are surrounded with big files of books, and you really wonder if they're going not themselves to mix them up, and even the procurement officers will not even know where the documents have disappeared to. So with an EGP system, this audit and monitoring is easy, and it's about streamlining and standardization of government procurements. It is very interesting to know that sometimes you think your processes are standardized, but once you have an EGP system, when things start to be automated, you find some people are doing it some other way. But with an EGP, you just, if it is automated, it is just one way to go. There's no other way around. It is about, the objectives is about enforcing compliance, and saving time and money for both government, the bidders, and any other player. It is about increasing security of bids and documents, but here, if you're not careful, because now your documents are in one system, if it is not well managed, you might as well lose it at once. I mean, there are cons and pros in having systems or in digitalizing, and also one of the objectives, and which also kind of encompasses the other ones, is to close or reduce corruption opportunities. The success factors in acquiring an EGP, and of course, these are the things that in Rwanda, we can say that we have really worked on, that have helped us have an EGP system that is working well at this time. The first success factor is the political will and government support. Without the support of the government, there is no way an EGP system will work, because many, be it in public procurement, in procuring entities or in suppliers, many are those who don't want to work in transparency. So this requires a very strong political will, a very strong support from the government to work. And the second success factor is having clear and established business processes. If your processes are messy in the manual, for sure they are going to be messy also when automated, or it's going to be not even possible to automate them. And another success factor is to have, or to aim to have, a complete system with well-adapted features, where everybody will relate, where everybody will see themselves. If you have a system that is, you want to force it on people, you will have extra resistance. And so you have to really plan for a complete system, not a fragmented system where you implement things here and other things there tomorrow. When it is complete at the beginning, you have more chances to succeed. And another success factor is to have interoperability readiness with external systems. We talked about reducing forgery, forged documents. For this to be possible is that the other administrative offices which provide documents that are required in public procurement, these other offices, they must have systems that are ready, and they must be also ready to integrate with you. If this is not yet ready, you will have a system that is not completely really responding to the objectives of a true EGP. Another key success factor is an established IT infrastructure. In Rwanda, this is where having a small country has helped us because we have a fiber optic, which is laid across the whole country, and it is easy to deploy last mile connectivity to different parts of the country. So if we are talking about inclusiveness, if participation and transparency and fairness, you won't deploy an EGP when you have most of your population who don't have access to the internet. So this is very key to having an EGP. You must be sure that everybody who is intended, at least in your country, everybody who can participate, nobody will be left behind because they don't have access to internet. Efficient capacity building and change management will also be a success factor because you can do everything, have everything in place, and yet, as I said, there are many people, not many people, but there are people who don't want to work in transparency. So with proper change management, you have to make people know that the EGP system is not there to make their life difficult, so that they cooperate. And when you work together with the users, with the stakeholders, you are able to drive your EGP to the next level. And finally, you must have a sustainability framework. You might implementing an EGP is one thing, but getting it running is another thing. You might implement it today. For example, maybe you are supported by donor development partners. You implement the system, it is there, but have you also thought about how it is going to run? This is something that the government has to commit to. Our governments have to commit to if we don't want to start something that we don't want to sustain. In a nutshell, this is Rwanda, EGP at a glance. As I said, Rwanda system is called Umucyo. We have so far 232 procuring entities that are using the system. That means basically all the central government and the local government up to the district level. Our local government is from provinces to districts and then sectors and cells. So we have deployed the system up to the district and district hospitals because those are the entities that so far have the right structures in place. That means they have procurement officers, they have legal officers, the structure that is required to run public procurement according to the required as it is required. We have registered so far, that is as per yesterday, 12,567 suppliers. We have registered more than 29,000 tenders. And to these tenders, we have received more than 100,025 bids, and we have signed more than 26,000 contracts in the system. The system is connected to these different other systems all around. We are receiving data from Rwanda Revenue Authority. That is if the tax clearances, for tax clearance or other fees that are paid. For example, if you pay a tender fee, you pay to, because the Rwanda Revenue Authority, you pay, that is the revenue collector for the government. If it is complaints amount, these fees are paid to the Rwanda Revenue Authority, and we receive the information through integration with Rwanda Revenue Authority systems, even the tax clearances. We are exchanging data with IFIMIS. From the beginning, IFIMIS we first get budget from the IFIMIS, and all along the procurement process, we keep exchanging data. We receive information from Social Security, from the company registrar, from National ID. So every user, every local user who is registered in this system must have an ID, and we verify if the ID is with our national identification system. And also, we are integrated with banks and insurance companies to get the bid securities and the performance securities, credit notes, all those things that they provide to bidders. So this, with this, we don't have fraudulent, forged documents. There were a lot of issues with forged bid security from those systems. The impact, what is the impact? There's a survey, a satisfaction survey that we conducted last year, in 2021, where we were asking user perception on different indicators, and particularly procuring entity users and bidders. In procuring entity, users were quite satisfied, where the average satisfaction was 96%. And the highest level of satisfaction was on increased efficiency. Most procuring entity users think the EGP system has made their work more efficient. And the low level of satisfaction, which is not really low level because it's 94%. It was the lowest level, is about saving time. And I think this is for procuring officers who have, for example, joined, are not yet trained. They find the system maybe is delaying them a little bit but with training, when they come used to the system, they come to they agree that it is increasing their efficiency. For bidders, the highest level of satisfaction was about information availability. This shows you where the interest of each person is. The users, the bidders, they want transparency. And it was about 88%. And the lowest level of satisfaction for bidders is on reducing corruption loopholes. That means they're still noticing corruption loopholes in the processes. However, the average satisfaction for our bidders is 75%. So talking about EGP and accountability. Accountability in finance, in public finance, is about being accountable for your actions, holding other people accountable, and also being good stewards of what is entrusted to you. It's not just about not being corrupt. You might not having corruption, but you must also make good use of government money. This is money that is entrusted to us. So we must really take care be conscious about value for money. So an EGP system helps you be accountable, and this is the system, what I'm going to talk about. There are a few characteristics of any government procurement system that ensures accountability that I want to talk about here. And I will let you know where we are with these characteristics. First of all, the system must ensure transparency throughout the whole procurement cycle. That means this is because someone might, if someone knows this cycle is controlled, is if they know something is transparent, they might aim to do some things where it is not transparent. So if you want accountability, if you want transparency, it has to be throughout. Otherwise, people will measure on those areas which are not controlled. So that means during the procurement planning, it has to be transparent. Tender advertisement, things have to be transparent. During opening and evaluation, even communications you have with your bidders, you must, an EGP system must ensure that there will be no private conversations between procuring entities and bidders. Whatever is given to this person, must be accessible to another person to ensure fairness. And there must also be transparency during contract award, in even post-award activities. So, now, supposing that you have this system that is where you have transparency or you have automation throughout the whole procurement cycle, you must also have the system now, once the system is in place, users can develop other tricks, how to trick the system, how to take advantage. They can notice the system weaknesses. They can see things that are not yet automated and dodge them. So you have to go to another level now to have a system that is able to detect and control fraud, malpractices, and manipulations of the system. But not only that, the system should also be able to promote good practices. So an EGP system, if it is there, should be able to alert you if there's something you didn't sign, if there's something that is getting close to a deadline that needs to be extended, if there is a delivery that is due, if whatever things that the system should not be there just to see that you have delayed, but to also remind you of important actions you need to do in the system. Next slide, please. And the third thing is about having, implementing a holistic, an EGP. It has to be a holistic, to have a holistic national coverage. This is still about, I talked about the inclusiveness, or not only that, it's what we're talking about. If users don't want to comply, they will exploit those open or non-controlled possibilities if they are there. As an example, if you have a phased EGP, this is one, some countries opt for, when they're implementing, they say, let us implement it in a phased approach. For example, I will start with these procurement methods and implement other procurement methods later. When you do that, you will be very surprised that people will start measuring on using the procurement methods that are not yet automated. And also, if you have a system that is not reliable, a system that is today on, tomorrow off, people will start resisting it, and they will start going manual. For example, if you are off and you tell them you go manual, because public procurement is like a river. It's something that is not going to be stopped. It has to continue. If you start it, you must be ready to ensure that the system is there, is running all the time and consistently. So if it goes down and people have options sometimes to go offline, they will always find excuses to go offline. And you never know if they have good reasons or bad reasons or malicious reasons. So it has to then also sometimes we have a system that is there since 2016, but until now you will not say that you have implemented an EGP and that's all, you have finished. They will keep asking for new features, Even today, we have so many features that users are requesting for that we haven't yet implemented. So if a user, sometimes these features are very, very, very urgent. If you're not in a position to respond to your users, to give them the features that they want at the time that they want it, they will also have the right to use it, to do it in the manual process, and this will affect your transparency. So when you deploy an EGP, you must be ready to do it in a holistic way, and also talking about the national coverage, there's an example for Rwanda case. I told you that we have deployed up to the district level, but in sectors, sectors, they are allowed to do procurement, small procurement of lower than a certain amount, but district, they are controlled by the district. And the district uses the e-government procurement system. Sometimes you might see that the mayor of the district, who doesn't want to do some procurement through EGP, is pushing his tenders to the sector where he knows it is less controlled. So these are the things I'm telling you that if you don't go in a holistic way, people will know where it is less controlled and they will exploit those opportunities. So in a nutshell, any government procurement system should not only put controls, but also constantly remind and support users on being accountable. This reminds me of a recent encounter I had with traffic police. A police officer told me to stop, and he directed me to a side road to park on the side. And I asked him, I didn't know if he was catching me or he was redirecting me to another road. So I asked him, did you catch me or you are redirecting me to that road? So he told me, my job is not to catch people. My job is to ensure your security. So an EGP system also, it is not to catch people doing malpractices. An EGP system is there to ensure the security of government finances and even the players in these finances. Next slide, please. So there are 3 levels of transparency that I would like to talk about. The first level is about publication of information. That is like publication of your procurement plans, publication of your tenders, publication of your opening reports. This is the first level, and when people are implementing an EGP, this is the first thing that they do, and most of us here, the member states here, have done it, I think. And the second level is now about reporting on decisions that have been done, reporting on work done. For example, if after evaluation, you are reporting on who won the tenders, who didn't win, and did they offer, so that the public can see that your decision that means you are showing your decision to the public. And the third level is now transparency itself, which is beyond reporting, where you can provide information on how the government is now performing. For example, you can show the public a comparison of the planned budget versus the executed budget. You can help the public have access to government spend information. For example, you show them this is where the government is spending most. These are the people the government is using. These are the companies that are taking the big shares of the government spend. These are information now that bring now inclusiveness of the population in public procurement. And accountability is reached when the public can question the results and decisions made. And to achieve this, as it was discussed yesterday, first of all, you must have clear information disclosure policies in place. You must know what, and have a backup legislation on what to publish, what not to publish. And also, you must have now the possibility to do it. You must have the know-how to produce accurate reports, to produce that information that you want to give to the public. You must give them information that they can understand and relate with. Sometimes you can publish information that nobody will understand. But I think this comes back to open contracting. Open contracting, since the time you have started working with them, I'm very sure that very recently we are going to have beautiful data to show to the public through the practices and experience that we are learning from them. And your information also must be published. You must have the capability to publish information when it is needed and when it can be acted upon. When you publish information and you bring it 1 year later, when it is useless, I think that is not what we are looking at here. And next. As we are talking about data, we should also have to consider the two sides of the coin. We don't have to overlook malicious information users. When you have information, when you publish information, there are people out there who are going to use the information for some other reasons you didn't expect. And we also have to know that there's data that is public, the data that is private. Do you know that the data that you have, when you are implementing an EGP system, the data that you have, you think is private. Is it really private? Is it protected? So this is something very important, because when it can be data leak or data loss. These are the key things you must think about when implementing an EGP. You don't want your information, someone to start selling your information from the system again. It has been reported that internal threats, that is the people who have, the people who have access to the system, they account for 60% of data breaches. So sometimes, let me talk about this a little bit because you have chief budget managers in the house. Sometimes it is, for us in the IT departments, it is difficult to get budget for security. Even if we get it, most of the time it is to protect against external users. External people know about hackers, people know about viruses, but do you know what people can do with your data internally? What damage it can do? Sometimes they can do it maliciously, sometimes they can do it inadvertently without knowing because they're not trained. So we must also, when we are implementing an EGP, especially an EGP system, we must make sure that the data leak is taken care of to ensure that the transparency we want is really enforced. For example, even if you are a manager of an EGP, you must put these places in place even to protect yourself, because you don't want, if tomorrow, for example, they say that you have sold such information to so, how are you going to protect yourself? There are ways there to put in place where even yourself, you can say, no, I have this can testify that I didn't access anything, where you can monitor who accesses what, who does what with what, and when. So how far are you implementing your EGP? Are you kind of swimming in an ocean of question marks, wondering where to start from, wondering how to deploy it countrywide if there's no internet, wondering how you're gonna maintain it if you have no skills? You have started and failed many times and you're completely lost, you don't know what to do? Have a few takeaways. First, you have to remember, more transparency means more accountability. There's no accountability without transparency. So you might not have a fully fledged EGP, but you can also think of alternatives. You can think of some quick wins. For example, I told you we have our EGP up to the district levels, and we have noticed that some tenders are going to the sectors for the district to evade the control. So what we have said, we said, okay, maybe we don't have the right structures in sectors. So, but there's something you can do. We can ask the sectors to report what they have done. Maybe they will do whatever they do outside the system, but we put them a very simple form where they can report the contract that they have signed. With that, we can monitor what is done even if we don't monitor the whole process, but we monitor the results. So, and putting a system like that for reporting is very simple. And that means by June this year, today we have 232 entities, but by June we have more than 1,000 entities reporting in the EGP, and we have a more, we were talking that sectors are having small tenders, but if there are so many having small tenders, it becomes big. So we have an idea of what is coming down there. So think alternatives, and also plan well. Don't plan a fragmented EGP because of pressure. No, plan well your EGP. Gather the right support, political will, political support. We are member states. We can help each other. For example, I'm eager to know what Uganda has done in contract management. So we learn what others are majoring on, learn from them. We are lucky we don't have to go very far. And stick to your plans. Make sure that we implement, like any good project manager, stick to your plan and fail until you succeed. Thank you.
We should give Francine a better hand clap, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you, Francine. Please take your seat. At a later time, the chair will invite you and the panelists to have this conversation. But I want to just run through a couple of administrative announcements. One is that our guest, our VIP guest, is arriving in the next 2 to 3 minutes. And so the panel will just start immediately after the session that will be happening. We will have a few speeches very shortly. And after these speeches, I will invite our session chair, who will then come and run us through the first panel discussion, where we will have open contracting, a representative from Tanzania, and our EGP project manager for Uganda, and include a team, a representative of Kenya from the National Treasury that will be speaking especially on issues of e-procurement. And as Francine said, this really is to drive transparency and accountability, and that this is the way to go for our procurement processes, our government procurement processes. And we saw the return on investment for Rwanda as she shared the experience they have had with this digital project and the successes the project has had. Of course, like any other digital project or even any other program you may develop as a unit, there will of course be some challenges, and I'm glad she shared with us where the gaps are, and the conversation that will happen here with the colleagues in the sector across the different countries will share with us the different experiences they have had. And yesterday I think we had during, I'm not sure if it was Edwin's presentation, how some of the counties in Kenya are already implementing their own digital procurement systems, and how that is working, and whether there needs to be one system that all the counties are speaking to, so that there is a form of tracking for the procurement processes, the government procurement processes. There is Wi-Fi. I'm not so sure we have seen the Wi-Fi. I don't know if you have. If you don't, let the Secretariat know. We have a Wi-Fi access. The username is PPD, and the password is EAPF 2023. EAPF 2023. Please note, the Wi-Fi username is PPD. I think the only letter missing there was A, and the password, there you go. Thanks, technical team, for sharing that. Again, I want to let you know, we will have, it's really a working coffee, so you notice that when you came in, you had the coffee, and so we will not break for coffee. It's critical that we manage our time today. I want to ensure that the meals are had at the exact time, because for some of you, you must eat at a certain time. We know that a lot of us are doing intermittent fasting lately. So if I move your midday to 3 p.m., I'm not doing you justice. Secondly, the panel discussions will include a plenary, and we are very hopeful that within that we'll be able to manage the time between, say, for example, this session that will come, chaired by Tanzania, and the next session on contract monitoring that has a couple of presentations. There's actually 2 presentations. And then we will open it up for a plenary session that should be able to capture most of the areas of interest. Our virtual audience, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. You can leave your comment if you're on Zoom in the comment section, or your question during the plenary session. We will be able to capture it. Secondly, on YouTube, again, you can leave a comment and we should be able to capture it, and the Secretariat will be able to capture this. As soon as our VIP is here, we will all, of course, be upstanding, and we'll have the anthems and then run through the program, and I will guide you through that. I will, of course, later request that we limit the movements. If you can, limit the your phone sounds. If you can mute your sound or even put it in vibration mode, that would be exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could be upstanding to receive the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda. Makofi, round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as we receive the retired Major Jessica Lupo, our Vice President. You're welcome, Madam Vice President. It's indeed an honor for us to have you with us this morning. I will ask that we remain upstanding for the anthems. We'll have both the Uganda National Anthem and the East African Anthem. Anthems, please.